All right, let's continue here now. The African Union is convening the third men's conference on positive masculinity in Pretoria this week with the aim of advocating for more initiatives and dialogues where young men and boys can discuss issues affecting them. President Cyril Ramaphosa noted in his weekly letter to the nation that Saturday marked the start of the 16 Days of Activism for No Violence Against Women and Children campaign. Ramaphosa has called on men and young boys to be at the forefront of fighting gender-based violence as the world observes the start of the international campaign. Siyabulela Jentile, president of the Not In My Name International Campaign, joins us now. Siyabulela, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. So this is, of course, the third men's conference that is taking place in Pretoria, and it centers around positive masculinity. Just talk to me about what exactly does that look like, and how and to what extent do you think that will go and will play an important role in curbing the gender-based violence crisis that we are currently in this country?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And so this is obviously the third AU conference. One was held in Kinshasa, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the inaugural one, and then the second one was in Dakar in Senegal. This is the third one, which is hosted by President Ramaphosa in partnership with the president of, or the leaders of the Comoros. Just as a disclaimer, I don't speak for the conference, I don't speak for the AU, or I speak as a stakeholder in South Africa, as well as someone who's a delegate in there. So for us as the movement, you would know that for the past few years, Not In My Name has been at the forefront of advocating for positive masculinities. You'd have seen in recent weeks in South Africa, we saw a case, for an example, at Sibanye, Stillwater, a man disemboweling another man taking a selfie. We saw a man stabbing a woman at the university. And so those are some of the most recent cases that say to us we've got a crisis of toxic and violent masculinities in South Africa. And so part of dealing with that means that we need to have constant stakeholder engagements. We need to, all of us, find ways in which we can, address these toxic masculinities by dealing with this system that is called the patriarchy, that continues to teach boys to be aggressive, and on the other hand, it teaches girls to be submissive. It will take us as men, and that is what I appreciate about the conference, because it is led predominantly by men. It's around masculinity, because it is men who are the primary beneficiaries of a system that continues to put women at the bottom of the social hierarchy while placing men and their needs at the top.
Now, South Africa continues to rank very low in as far as the Global Peace Index is concerned. And one wonders then, conferences like these, even campaigns like the 16 Days of Activism of No Violence Against Women and Children, campaign, which is an international campaign. One wonders to what extent do these international campaigns drive that message home? We need to see some form of practicality in terms of that. As you and I speak today, the numbers haven't moved much in terms of South Africa being really one of the top countries that is, violent against its women and children. So really, where do we begin in terms of driving that message that you speak of in terms of positive masculinity? Do we not have to start looking at schools? I mean, you mentioned two cases of very violent incidences that we saw in this country. Just last week, there was a violent incident in schools where junior children were, or primary school kids were raped. And these are young kids. And where do they see that from? Where's the message going? So my question really is, do we need to do more than have and host conferences? Do we need to start seeing things happen on the ground, particularly where boys are concerned?
No, most definitely. Violence is learned and internalized and then reproduced. The violence, especially when it comes to boys, is something that has been, learned from someone else. And we really need to, where it starts, it should really be on grassroots level. And I'm saying this because most of our interventions, and while there is nothing wrong with that, we need to go a step further. Most of our interventions has been on victim support, and ensuring that victim receives adequate support. The victims and survivors of GBVF receive all the support that they need. That is well and good. However, it deals with half the problem. The other half lies in our rehabilitation programs. It lies within the strengthening of our criminal justice system to ensure that we've got maximum sentences being granted to perpetrators, but also we must also try to rehabilitate those that can be rehabilitated. But also it speaks to the programs that would seek to re-socialize boys. Boys are not animals. I always say when I speak to people, you can go to any maternity ward. I was there a few days ago. You can't pinpoint at those kids and say you are going to be a rapist, you are going to be a killer, you are going to be a this. So between birth and death, something happens in the life of these children. And that is what we refer to as socialization. And so they pick up this social prescripts or these social scripts which happen to be toxic and violent, and then they reproduce them as they grow. And so times such as the 16 Days of Activism are an opportunity for us to reflect on our responses to gender-based violence, to reflect on some of our programs. Are they effective? What is it that we can do? And so, it also for us, it's also a time whereby we get maximum coverage on these issues, because for us, this 16 days doesn't really exist, because we do this throughout the year.
Siyabulela, just as a quick wrap of a question I want to ask you. I mean, of course, we heard from President Cyril Ramaphosa calling on men and young boys to be at the forefront of this fight. The Deputy President also calling on justice system to impose more sanctions on perpetrators. Very, very briefly, of course, we know that society also plays a very important role, but what is government really doing? Do you find that it is playing its part?
So, from the sentiments of the president, those efforts or those interventions are more reactionary than they are in terms of trying to deal with the issues before they happen. And so they must invest more in programs that prevent the violence and the toxic masculinities instead of, saying what they are saying. In terms of are they doing more? No, I can't sit here as an activist and say government is doing enough. They are not doing enough. I always say that there is definitely a lack of political will when it comes to GBV. And it's a problem because gender-based violence takes away over 35 billion from the fiscus annually in South Africa. And so they cannot continue. The KPMG report says it's too big to ignore this problem. And so government is not doing enough. We hope that from these deliberations in this next 2 days, they will come out reformed as government and do something better.
Well, I certainly hope so. Siyabulela, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Really do appreciate it. Siyabulela Jentile, President of Not In My Name International, joining us there to unpack it more.